welcome everyone to another great chess video. We are continuing our mastery of Rook Endgames, and as we continue to do that, we move more and more toward practical positions and positions that have occurred in real games and all kinds of tricks. And now this is one of the first we've done where we have a real, very effective method to know against position that's a borderline draw. Borderline draw, but a technique and a method and a trick that, if you know it, will win you some games you maybe weren't supposed to win. So here is a position where we are where black is to play. Um, Now, if you look at this position, you're up a pawn, and you've got some obvious moves like putting the rook on b2 check, which would force the king to go backward, and then it seems that bringing our king forward would be a nice way to make progress. But I'd like to invite you to take a second right off the bat and try to calculate some of this in your head and see if you can notice what some of the obvious problems are with that. Keep in mind that as you move more and more toward advanced positions, you have to keep in your database of knowledge in your head the things you know, things like the Philidor draw, things like your goals of Lucina position, things like rook on long side, king on short side. Those technical ideas, those fundamental ideas you learned are going to apply to these positions, whether you're trying to win or draw. And so the more you can keep that in your database of knowledge, the better your chances are of solving these positions over the board. So again, I'm going to be quiet for just a second. Go ahead and see if you might be able to know what black should do here. Okay, and we're back. So let's say you've taken a second and hopefully you figured out the right idea. Black only has one way to win this position, actually, believe it or not, and I think he needs to do it right away. Giving this check is not effective. Well, let's see. Let's say we were starting in a position where it was white to move first, and a lot of times we have to make whites move first on these boards. So forget about that. We're still in this position. It's black to play, and let's look at the problem with bringing this rook forward. Check. When I move back, if your king comes forward to either f3 or to d3, I'm going to give a check. Now, if you come to d3, I'm going to start checking you on the long side. And again, my rook is just far enough away that your king cannot reach me without leaving the pawn. And if your rook blocks, I'll trade and bring my king forward. There, you might even lose. Um, Now, if your king moved the other way to f3, I'm going to go ahead and take this pawn with check and move down, and we're immediately in a draw because we're in a Philidor position. Your pawn is extended too far, and your king will have no place to hide from checks. So we should know these ideas, and they're pretty straightforward. So we win this position with the title of our video, the umbrella method. The very nice, very practical idea here is to push this pawn, which seems ludicrous just if we're just making a simple trade, because obviously if we were just to take back, that has not helped us in the slightest, and we're right into a Philidor draw. But if you know what the umbrella method means, it means using your opponent's pawn as an umbrella of protection for your king. The winning idea is forced. F4 deserves an exclam. This move deserves an exclam. And hiding the king behind your opponent's pawn, behind the enemy pawn, is an advanced idea called the umbrella method. We've protected our king from checks, and white is now losing really immediately because our threat of checkmate, combined with the threat that we've learned in other positions of swinging to the other side, which makes rook on the 8th rank, or the 1st rank in this case, not effective, because he still cannot deal with the threat of checkmate and the defense of the rook. Excuse me. And so we see a loss for white. A very, very nice idea. Um, Starting in this position, if we were starting in a position like this, white would have draw immediately, but the position really is to be solved from here, where the rook is not in the most optimal position. We sacrifice our own pawn. Obviously, pushing is not an option because double connected passed pawns are generally an easy enough win that they're not even worth going over. Capturing the pawn is our idea, not because we're taking back. We give up that pawn not to take back, but to give this check and then to hide our king behind the pawn. And again, this is the umbrella method. Notice that if he had a check here, this would be a drawn endgame because he could transfer the rook after that check. He could transfer that rook down, leading to an immediate Philidor draw. But because his own pawn is in the way, shielding our king, this position is a win for black. and he will not be able to stop the progress of our pawn or the progress of our checkmate threats and winning the rook. So a very, very nice idea, very, very important idea is this umbrella method. With that said, that helps us move directly into our second umbrella method position. That second umbrella method position is this one here. And we're going to start by making White's move. White's move is going to be rook on d7. He's kind of waiting a little bit, hoping that we blow our defense. And now, your knowledge of what happened in that last game should help you to be able to figure this out. And also your knowledge of some of the basic fundamental positions we've done, like the Philidor draw, including the passive and active defense, should help you solve this position. But the question for you here is, you're black, and what would you do to hold this position? That's the question you need to ask yourself here. What would you do to hold this position? Would you sit on the position with either you moving your king or your rook back and forth? Would you try to be more aggressive with the rook and come behind the pawns? Or would you, let's see, make a silly move like f5? We'll just tell you that's got to be wrong, because helping me to create a protected pass pawn and bring my king up cannot be the right idea. So let's look at this position and take a second as being black and tell me what you would do here. Okay, we're going to assume that you've taken a second, and I'm going to tell you the answer. Black needs to do what always seems to be the right defense, or not always, but a lot of times in my experience, sometimes the best defense is knowing what not to change about your position. Not knowing what to change, but knowing what not to change. In this position, if black maintains control over the fifth rank, you may have recognized that white is not really threatening a trade, because as long as this trade comes with check, he'll have no option of hiding the king in any way. He'd have to take back. And when he takes back, what have you noticed about this position? We're immediately in a very, very easy Philidor draw. In fact, we're in such an easy Philidor draw that you don't even have to wait along the sixth rank. With the knight pawn, what do you remember from some of the most basic rook ending videos? You can even wait along the eighth rank, play passive defense, because when it comes to the knight and the rook pawn, white is not threatening to make any progress. There is no way to force the king out of the corner to make advancements. In fact, his only way to do that, by bringing the rook to this side of the board and pushing, is actually a nice recipe to lose the endgame, because white loses the rook. So funny to recognize that the best defense here is actually to not change the position, because as long as he can't push this pawn because you take with check, he can't really attack your pawn effectively because your king is defending this f7 square behind the pawn. You can come right up, and moving the king back is not going to help him, because your rook can maintain control over the fifth rank, and now he's not threatening to push at all, because you've got double the defense, and he doesn't have enough defenders to even make an advancement. The one thing you could do to lose this endgame after white waits is to bring the rook behind the pawn. So if you chose that idea, this is where we name this position the umbrella method too. Because by changing your defense, by changing your control over the fifth rank, you've actually just lost the endgame for yourself. After rook to b1, white plays king to h5 exclam. We bring our rook to the g file, which would have been the idea of bringing the rook down. And we're happy. We're thinking, okay, well, he can't move forward with the king because we'll take with check. Should be an easy draw. And we're thinking, obviously this move doesn't threaten anything because we take. And if he sits, then we sit. He's not really threatening to make any advancements here. But the problem is that he can push this pawn, and after you take, does he take it, allowing a Philidor easy passive defense? Your rook would come back? No, he pushes. And once again, we see the umbrella method, using this pawn to shield his king from checks. After he pushes the pawn and you capture, he doesn't take back, he pushes. And you'll notice this is a win because of the fact that your pawn is not quite fast enough to deal with his threats of checkmate and his advancements of the pawn. We might try to run out and he'd push again. Once again, threatening checkmate. We'd have to run out again. And all of a sudden, probably multiple wins here, but the most simple would be sliding over, followed by a good check and an advancement of the pawn. And White's position is too fast. White's win here is too fast because his ability to come back and stop your pawn, and black is now in a lost endgame. Or this check could be given first, forcing the king away because king f8 leads to checkmate on e8. So again, let me back up and kind of execute those ideas one more time. The umbrella method is a very important thing to know, especially if you're trying to win a very slight advantage endgame. Knowing that little practical trick that if your opponent gives you the opportunity, considering the idea of sacrificing your own pawn and then using the enemy pawn to shield the king from checks from the rook is a very, very nice idea, very, very practical idea, and one that can win you a lot of games. And I'm particularly fond of the fact that okay, here would have been the most accurate way. Let's say I push the pawn first with check. Now you notice that regardless of where your king goes, I'm going to be giving check and making a queen. But I like this. I like this idea of showing you that even with black's pawn reaching the second rank, he's still unable to win because of the rook transfer down to the second rank. It's kind of like a Lucena position. Even if his king was able to get here and get in some sort of optimal defense, it's not good enough. Because of the fact that his rook is behind the pawn, and you've obviously been able to achieve the position where the pawn has advanced far enough. Here, this would be an easy win, and when he gives these checks, your king could move along the knight and rook file to eventually escape them, and the queen will come very quickly. So the umbrella method is prevented as long as you wait along the fifth rank, and let's see, white's best try to win there is the f5 move. And but once he's done that, what has he done? He's created a problem for himself in terms of the square. We now take the opportunity to transfer back behind the pawn and immediately come behind, just as we did in the other position, except the difference being white's lack of protection here. Now, if white tries to make this sacrifice, we're not going to take with the pawn and allow his king to hide. We're obviously going to take with the rook with check. So, by waiting along the fifth rank, we've stopped the umbrella method, forced his pawn to push first. It's almost like a Philidor idea, where you force the pawn to push, bring the rook now behind the pawns, grab the knight file, preventing progress, and black has been able to achieve a drawn position. White will come forward and not give up too easily. And again, I would ask you, why is this position a draw? Well, hopefully you've done the Rook Endgame series, so you've immediately recognized we are now easily in king on short side, rook on long side. Exclamation mark move with the rook transferring over. He tries to make his progress. We are in a position that is a theoretical draw because of our king on short side, rook on long side idea. White is unable to make progress. Um, So I've talked a little bit fast in this video, admittedly, and we've gone through some pretty advanced ideas quickly, but hopefully you've made enough progress and you understand some of those fundamental ideas like the Philidor draw, both passive defense and active defense. You understand king on short side, rook on long side, and you're starting to see one of the things I've been mentioning throughout these videos, which is that your understanding of technical positions will make you a good practical player. You have to do the work and you have to learn some of these ideas. Also, you'll notice that we start backwards to forwards. If you started with some of the basic fundamental ideas, you're now able to look at a position where maybe a grandmaster before quickly evaluated a position and almost brushed it off, and you thought he was being arrogant or kind of a jerk. And now you understand that really he fully understands. It's a good example. He fully understands that if black simply made a waiting move here, this endgame isn't even really worth going much further because there is no progress to be made. White can't push the pawn because of your easy knowledge of the Philidor draws, including the passive defense here. White's only chance would be to try to push this pawn first, but again, our knowledge of king on short side, rook on long side, which is kind of hard to see from that position, but your technical knowledge will have made you a good enough player to do that, would tell you to bring this rook behind the pawn. He makes progress with his king, but it really doesn't scare us because we're ready for the fact that our rook on the long side is not going to allow the Lucena position, and we're going to be able to draw this endgame with our basic understanding of the fact that the rook on the long side cannot be caught by the king. And I already showed you the fact that the trickiest idea, which is trying to get you to trade into the king and pawn endgame, again, doesn't work because of that famous phrase we used when we did the king on short side, rook on long side videos. We wait on the eighth. It's kind of my invented phrase because it kind of rhymes. When you want to wait, you always wait on the eighth. It's the best position for the rook, and it allows you to bring the king forward. You're in the optimal position of stopping the queen, and king on short side, rook on long side has drawn you the game again, and you are happy to draw this position. So that's going to conclude our umbrella method video. Hopefully you've seen a nice practical idea showing you, again, let's look at it one more time where this idea would have lost because white's ability to come forward and then make a sacrifice of his own pawn using the enemy pawn to shield the king from checks wins the game easily using the enemy pawn as an umbrella, as we say, an umbrella of protection. So that is the umbrella method, a very practical and useful idea. And we also saw a way to defend it, which was to not change the position. Good practical point. A lot of grandmasters will tell you always know what not to change. So we wait along the fifth rank. He pushes the pawn at some point, would lead to an easy passive defense draw or sixth rank Philidor defense, however you want to do it. Um, so he has to push this pawn first in order to create that entrance for the king. By cutting off the rook, he creates that entrance. But when he's done that, he's now allowed us to improve our protection of this square, preventing the umbrella method, and our knowledge, finally, of king on short side, rook on long side, has gotten us into a position where we feel very confident in our ability to draw. So we're starting to see it all come together from beginning positions to complicated positions. We feel good about our rook ending knowledge. Hope you enjoyed this video and have a wonderful, wonderful day.